YouTube today, you'd think that the practice of drifting is as old as racing cars itself. But the sport of delicate balance and complete anarchy, of smoke, shredded tires, and dented fenders, hasn't always been around. It's relatively new, in fact. Drifting is dancing with horsepower.
I need to confess something. I don't know how to drift. I want to learn it. I don't have a car. Keep that in mind.
Battling with fenders, and singing with exhaust notes and tire smoke. It's driving, but a little bit over-dramatic. You know, sort of like this channel. Despite the art of oversteer invading everything from Pixar to PlayStation, its roots are humble and centered around one man. A man who rose from rebellious teenager street racing in the quiet hours of Japan's winding toge to a world-class driver standing atop podiums around the world. Someone who changed the world by turning his wheels in the other direction, took risks others weren't willing to take, and left a legacy that will last for generations to come. This is the story of Keiichi Tsuchiya, the Drift King. The story of Keiichi Tsuchiya begins in 1956, in the small village of Tomi. There, Tsuchiya-sama was born. Rumors have it that he came out of the womb sideways. The town of Tomi was long known for its hot springs, its beautiful landscapes.
Come on! Oh my fucking god, that's some bullshit if I ever heard it. He came out of the womb sideways. No, I gotta have any more cues today, so I'll just call it quits and watch the video. I feel like more than watching the video, to be honest.
But most importantly, its proximity to winding roads known as toge. In the late 1960s, you might find Datsun 510s and Honda S600s attacking the nearby curves of Usui Pass late at night, a 7.5-mile narrow mountain road over bridges, hairpins, and sheer cliff edges. Late at night, populated by drivers clamoring to be the fastest on its many winding passes. Their name was Hashiriya, motoring enthusiasts that emerged in the 60s and 70s of Japan, taking their love of driving to the streets, hills, and raceways of Japan's diverse blacktops. Young Keiichi would sit awake at night, listening to the roar of engines echoing through the hills as they battled at night. So inspired was Keiichi that one day he kickstarted his gas-powered bicycle and rode it 120 miles to Fuji Speedway, just to see racing up close and in person. On that day, Tsuchiya-sama would witness a driver pushing themselves and their car to the limit, and be inspired to spend his lifetime doing the same. There, at the helm of a Hakusuka GTR, Kunimitsu Takahashi was overtaking his opponents by sliding his car through the corners.
Okay.
Today, Keiichi Tsuchiya is well known for bringing the sport of sliding cars to the masses. But Kunimitsu Takahashi, otherwise known as Kuni-san, was truly the father of drifting. A man whose motorsports career is as impressive in its wins as it is in its diversity. Kuni-san started out as a motorcycle racer in the late 1950s, rising through the ranks to earn a spot on the Honda Speed Club factory team, where he rode his 250cc Honda over the finish line to become the first Japanese rider to win the West German Motorcycle Grand Prix in 1961. A year later, he would attempt the absurdly dangerous Isle of...
So wait, this guy's actually the... What? I'm confused. Is this guy not the inventor of the drifting, or is the one that came out sideways? Because he said the guy that came on sideways watched it, and now we're talking about this guy who he watched. Huh?
Man TT, a blisteringly fast motorcycle time trial run on public streets that has claimed the lives of over 150 riders. There, somewhere amongst the 219 turns around the town of Douglas, Kuni-san loses control of his Honda 250, and the ensuing accident nearly takes his life. While recovering from his heavy injuries, Kunimitsu is forced to reconsider whether racing on two wheels is even worth it anymore. Luckily, at the time, Nissan had learned of his dominating performance on motorcycles and offered him a spot on their factory team in 1965. And with that, the leather jacket of rider Kunimitsu was hung on the wall for the rest of time. As a driver for Nissan, he set many lap records in their prototype race cars, such as the R380, the R381, and the R382. But it would be his outings in the Hakusuka GTR that would not only earn him trophies, but the love of an entire nation of motoring fans. In the early 70s, Kuni-san found himself in the cockpit of the Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR. With the spirit of competition burning in his heart, he came to win. But his tires were absolute garbage. And he wasn't alone. Everyone's rubber struggled to keep grip. You see, tire technology in 1970 was way behind the power and dynamics of the racing cars they were fitted to. So you couldn't really rely on them to maintain grip as you attacked a turn, or stay in control as you accelerate out of an apex. What this meant was that most drivers would go very slow in and timidly accelerate out of a corner to maintain traction. Kuni-san, whose bravery had been forged by years of two-wheeled death traps, had a different approach. Instead of meekly feathering the throttle and abiding by the limits of his tires, he would just press the accelerator firmly, aim at the corner exit, initiate a four-wheel slide, and just wait for his tires to give him the traction he needed to accelerate out. The result was essentially drifting. A sports car sliding through a turn, tires billowing smoke, and unexpected Japanese motoring fans screaming with acclaim. Kuni-san's motoring exploits would go on for decades. But that might just be a story for another time. Because there in the 1970s, among the onlookers watching with eyes wide open and jaws agape, was a young Keiichi Tsuchiya, who would forever be inspired by Kuni-san's outlandish driving style, and who would quickly start saving for a car of his own, so that he too could slide his car through corners. Not on a racetrack, but on the dangerous mountain passes of Japan.
So he didn't invent drifting? The other guy did. The older one. Okay. Mental note. Oh.
Following the absolutely massive success of the Hakusuka GTR, Nissan released its KPGC 110 GTR, aka the Kenmari. It is one of the greatest and rarest cars Japan has ever created. And somehow, according to Tsuchiya, it was his first car. Look, I know, everyone everywhere quotes Tsuchiya-sama as starting from some humble beginnings, but driving one of the 197 Kenmari GTRs as his first car triggers the sus in me a little bit.
They also said he was born sideways. What the fuck do you think, man? Ah, yeah. Born sideways, okay, but having a car, that's a little bit too much, huh? That's where you draw the line. Fucking hell. Okay.
Other accounts say that his first car was the Nissan Sunny B110. Either way, whatever car Tsuchiya did start in, he didn't dive headfirst into racing. In fact, at first, he refused to compete with others. After seeing how treacherous and tight the Yusui Pass was, he opted instead to drive out to remote farmland and practice his driving technique on the weekends. For 4 whole years. 4 years of constant practice. Braking, heel towing, and counter steering until he had a...
It's almost like... let me think. Wild theory here, okay? He had an expensive car. He trained. And then he raced? Wait. It's almost like he didn't want to wreck it? Huh. It's just theory out there, you know? Take it with a grain of salt, but I don't know. Feels like that could be a hot lead. Maybe a red herring from the sideways born magician.
A connection with the car that was absolute. After spending what is honestly an absurd amount of time practicing, Tsuchiya finally felt it was time to take on the Yusui Hashiriya. Keiichi made short work of the mountain racers. They never really stood a chance. When you practice for 4 years at something, forging your skills with fervent dedication, little can stand in your way. Keiichi was quickly deemed king of the mountain, and rivals would travel from all over the region to challenge him, only to see his taillights disappearing around the corner ahead of them, never to see them again. He was adored by other Hashiriya for his flamboyant racing style, passing his opponents in curves while sliding sideways. Word of Tsuchiya-sama's abilities soon traveled down the mountains to the world of professional Japanese racing. And in 1977, Keiichi would begin his life's work as a professional racing driver. But the soul of illegal mountain racing would never leave him.
As you already know, this is the man responsible for bringing the drift sensation from the other side of the Pacific to our shores here in the United States. He's a D1 Grand Prix judge.
Oh my fucking god, there's like a huge bug.
Tsuchiya knew the road ahead of him was long and difficult. Just like his successes as an outlaw mountain racer, his career as a pro driver would take a lot of time.
Fucking hate bugs.
Time and dedicated practice. His humble racing debut began in the Fuji Freshman Racing Series, which is sort of a college sports version of touring car racing. You get to act like the professionals, but you're gonna pay for everything yourself. There he would pilot Toyota Starlets and Nissan Sunnies, economical, fun little cars with less than 100 horsepower. Keiichi's dedication to mastering driving skill and not relying on horsepower meant that he quickly racked up wins and garnered the support of sponsors. And even though he was winning, he felt like he was being held back by these low horsepower rookie racing classes. So he went to his sponsors and asked for money to buy a new, faster car. They said, sure, win the entire championship and we'll give you a new car. So he did. And in 1984, he stepped out of the world of underpowered, unassuming racing cars and into the driver's seat of an all-new, underpowered, unassuming racing car. But this would be a seat he would never leave for the rest of his life.
Hey, what's that, a Toyota?
The 1985 Toyota Corolla GTS. A Toyota, dependable. A Corolla, affordable. And yet a different kind of Corolla. A sweeper. A car for the street that's powered by a new twin-cam, fuel-injected.
What's he got in there?
16-valve engine.
What's he got in there?
Known as the TC16.
Hey, yeah, what's he got in there?
The 1980s were, well, for lack of a better term, weird. And the world of 80s Japanese cars was no different. Car companies of the time were abandoning complex rear-wheel drive platforms for simpler, more fuel-efficient front-wheel drive cars. Mitsubishi Mirage, Honda Civics, Toyota Tercels, all a dismal sign of the slow and depressing death of the sports car. But there among them was one last freedom fighter, a sports car for the masses, well, before the Miata came along, the AE86 Corolla. For this generation, Toyota went insane. Instead of just one new Corolla, they split the lineup in half. One was just another front-wheel drive economy car, but parked next to it at a dealership would be a near mirror image. But this time, with a rear-wheel drive platform, sportier suspension, and a free-revving, fun-loving 1.6-liter engine, the Hachiroku. a plucky economy car with the heart of a champion. For our hero Keiichi, it was love at first sight. His racing prowess was forged on tight mountain roads. Tsuchiya-sama never cared for high horsepower, turbos, or gimmicks. To win, he believed you needed a vehicle you could trust. One that did what it was told and communicated back to the driver with solid inputs and delicate handling. Tsuchiya's competition AE86 went by many names. Carrot Flashpoint, Karada, whatever you called it, you saw it cross the finish line first. Though underpowered and unassuming, Keiichi and his Carrot A86 dominated the Fuji Freshman Series for 6 championships, leaving more powerful and advanced cars in its dust. So, what do you do when you're dominating the competition and no one can beat you? You have a little fun with it. Like his hero Kuni-san, Keiichi kept himself entertained on course by sliding through corners, passing his opponents while graciously countersteering. It was probably really fun to watch, but must have driven the other competitors nuts. Tsuchiya-sama's performance in the Advan 86 was so dominant, the Nismo team had him investigated for cheating. I mean, how else can you explain that this puny little hatchback was sliding around corners and still passing its competitors? He of course wasn't cheating, he was just kind of a jerk. But the fans loved it. Tsuchiya was winning so easily that he found it boring, so his antics got bigger and bolder, exaggerating his drifting, pushing the track limits, driving fans wild and pissing off the officials. Eventually, the officials had had enough of it and threatened to suspend his license. His on-track exploits led him to earn the title of Dorkin, or Drift King. The reputation and controversy around the Drift King inspired Option magazine to reach out to Tsuchiya. They thought, what if we were able to show everyone the wild driving style of the Drift King? So they set about following Tsuchiya-sama for weeks, riding along with him and filming him attacking Yusui Pass in his personal AE86. What they released is a time capsule, roughly 20 minutes of oddly edited but superbly shot drifting masterclass. Raw sound, pure driving, and few cuts. It was called Plusby, and it may seem almost timid now, but when it was created, nothing like it had ever been released. The reason nothing like it had ever been released was, well, in Japanese culture, filming yourself committing crimes is not as popular as it is here in America. As Plusby started making waves in the automotive scene, authorities took notice and immediately demanded the VHS tapes be removed from store shelves. Now, of course, censorship rarely works. The controversy just made Plusby even more desirable, its content more taboo and thus exciting to watch. And with that, drifting had hit the main stage. In 1986, Carboy magazine held what is believed to be the first drifting competition. And hot off the viral hit of Plusby, Keiichi and Daijiro of Option magazine started their own drifting events in 1989. They were known as Ikaten. Keiichi and Daijiro never took anything seriously. The Ikaten were meetups of poor car enthusiasts let loose.
Okay, I got it. He did the drifting king thing. I just wanted to know like the origins of it.